Welcome to the Magnetically Aligned Woman. Walk into your power through self-love, self-worth, and authenticity. Today, I have amazing Julie Serot, and she is the founder of the Dharma Circle and a success coach for female entrepreneurs. She works with women who are looking to identify their fulfilling and juicy life purpose that also brings them abundance and joy, as well as helping high performers who have already achieved success with their businesses to create more alignment in their lives and their business. The primary modalities used in her practice are yoga, movement, emotional cultivation, and intuitive connection. These esoteric practices are balanced with pragmatic and practical strategies and steps to create real avenues for wealth. Thank you so much for being here, Julie. I'm so excited to have you.
Yes, I'm so happy to be here and connect with you, Nikki, and make a difference for your people.
Let's get right into it because I am so itching to just kind of pick your brain and your life. Can you share a little bit more about like your journey? How did you get into what you do right now?
Yes, so I graduated from college with the thought that I was just going to do what I thought I was supposed to do. So I went off to corporate in New York City and just felt a little bit confused as to like a lot confused as to why I felt so unhappy and everybody around me seemed so happy. Like, what's wrong with me that I feel so unhappy? Is it that there's something wrong with me or are they not telling me something? Like, are we just supposed to pretend that we're all happy? Like, what is this about? I remember I went home for the holidays in my early 20s and I said to someone in my family, like, do you ever feel unhappy about your work or do you ever feel unhappy about your life? Like, what do you do in those moments? And she was like, oh yeah, of course I feel that way. And yeah, I just go and buy a new shampoo or a new mascara. And I was like, she doesn't get it. She does not get what I'm saying. Okay. And I just went on to keep living my life in New York and doing what everyone was doing, which was drinking and partying. And it didn't take long. It did not take long before I just was like, okay, enough is enough. This is awful. So I started separating myself from that, crowd and that vibe. And that was around the time that TED Talks came out. And like, I've always had this personal development like slant. And I would literally, like, I lived in one of the coolest cities in the world. And I spent my entire weekends just binge watching TED Talks. Like that was all I did on the weekend. And I was just like, oh, like, it started to open. I haven't really told the story this way before, but it started to like open my mind around possibility and like, what would it just, gets you thinking. Like that's the whole point. It gets you inspired, it gets you thinking. And so I'm like starting to shift my vibrational state, right? Like my whole mindset, my whole paradigm starting to shift and all of that. So one day I was walking home from my office and I'd lived in my apartment building for 2+ years. And for whatever reason, like one of those when a student is ready, the teacher appears type of things, I saw that there was a yoga studio in the bottom floor of my building. And I had magically never seen it in 2.5 years of living there.
No way.
And I was like, huh, okay. And so I went in and I went ahead and bought like the new member special, all of that. And I just like got addicted to the yoga practice. And the reason is because every time I was in that space with my teachers on my mat, I felt home. I felt grounded. I felt centered. I felt peace. I felt a sense of just wholeness that I had been craving, that nothing else could fill, that I wanted more and more and more and more and more of. So I spent as much time as I possibly could in that studio, mornings, evenings, weekends, whatever. And I discovered that every time I went to my mat and practiced, like new downloads would come through. And I just allowed myself to receive the downloads with no judgment. And one day I received a download telling me to go and get my advanced degree in marine mammal biology, which had been my dream since I was a kid, that I had shrugged off for the reasons of like, oh, I'm not smart enough. It's a male dominated field. I'm not scientifically minded enough. Like I grew up in the Midwest, like so many excuses and reasons. And so this came through and I was like, I'm going to trust this. I'm going to go for it. I'm going to do it. And the worst that happens is that I fail. Then I can at least say that I tried. So long story short, fast forward 6 months, I got a full scholarship to get my PhD in marine mammal biology. And what I attribute this to isn't just making that decision and taking that leap, although that is a huge part of it. And I had the same process when I started my business. Same thoughts of like, worst that happens is that I fail. Like, that's the worst case scenario. And if I don't go for it, at least I won't regret not trying, which was like not the most powerful inner dialogue, but at least it got me moving. So that was the inner dialogue. But what I really attribute that manifestation to, and honestly, like all future manifestations since then, including becoming an entrepreneur, including starting my business, including the success we've had today, including like pretty much everything positive I've created in my life, is that I did three things that when I reverse engineer and look back on like how did I create what I created, these three things were present in each of those situations. So the first is obviously I was doing yoga. So the reason why that's important is because it clears your energy channels and energy system, so you know the downloads you're getting are pure. And so you're getting downloads, you're totally unblocked, your energy systems are functioning optimally. That's literally what yoga is designed to do. Like that's why it's been around for thousands of years. And so that the yoga practice is crucial for the manifesting process. So that's the first thing. And it doesn't have to be like, you know, people sometimes have this idea like, oh, I need to twist myself into a pretzel to call it yoga. Like, no, like literally there are days where my yoga practice is laying on the floor on my back, feet in the air, happy baby, and that's my practice. You know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't have to be fancy or look a certain way. The whole point is that you're in your body with your breath, and that's the goal. And then it looks however it looks, and there's no comparison, no judgment, no need to have it look a certain way, anything like that. So yoga practice. The second is what I call emotional cultivation. And this is where we get into like the manifesting vibes. So like visualization and focusing on the desired outcome and how you expect that desired outcome would make you feel. And like really getting into that heart-centered intentional place. I call that emotional cultivation. So that's step two. And I did a lot of that. Like I saw the offer, like I saw the, not the offer letter, although I did do that process for my job to get when I was in New York City, but I saw the acceptance letter for school. Like I saw the acceptance letter, like I visualized it all out, right? And I felt it. That's step two. Step three, of course, is take inspired action. So like for that one, I spent evenings, every evening after work, which like I worked long hours. So sometimes it went to like, you know, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. I spent evenings and weekends researching peer-reviewed literature of potential supervisors I could work with, emailing them, asking them, what do I need to qualify to be a student with you? What do I need to qualify to be a student at this university? Like, what do you like? Just, yeah, would you be willing to take on a new student? This is my passion. This is my goal. And so that's the committed action. That's what it was in that case. If you're an entrepreneur, it's writing the emails, it's reaching out, it's doing the enrollment conversations, it's whatever you need to do to build your business, right? Like 20 conversations a day or whatever it is. And so you really need all three. I call those the three pillars of manifestation. And it's really like in looking back on this one story of how did I create that crazy, unexpected manifestation that makes zero sense. I had zero qualifications to be a marine mammal biologist, but I did it. How did I do that? Well, looking back, it was through the three pillars of manifestation. And again, that's literally the steps I've taken to manifest anything and everything I've ever wanted in my life.
Wow, that is amazing. And I want to pick apart each pillar a little bit more, because what intrigued me was that you didn't just go into this is how you do it. We went into like the whole being in your body through yoga. Can you share a little bit about why it's so important to have that as a primary step? Because oftentimes like people who are looking for success and building a business or building a life, they go straight to the strategy. And that was me when I first started. I was like, oh, I just need a blueprint and I have to follow the blueprint. And that did not work like at
Right.
all.
You're spot on with that. So that's actually exactly why I created like the programs and stuff I've created, is because I was actually a support coach in a spiritual coaching program where it was a lot of like the manifesting side of things. I was a support coach in the business coaching side of things where we just focused on strategy. And what I saw was that when I coached, just like, I mean, I couldn't help like innovate a little bit. I'm like giving both of my students yoga practices. I'm giving them, the spiritual people, I'm giving them strategies. The business people, I'm giving them like visualize this and do this yoga practice. And I discovered that when each of those people in each of those groups did all three things, their results elevated quickly to the point where like I developed a reputation as a coach where someone would get on the phone with me and they'd start making sales right away. Like it just became this really interesting flow of events when people use these techniques and strategies. So, and it makes sense because exactly what you said, like no amount of perfect, really good, proven strategy, even if it's worked for somebody else, is going to work as well for you if you are not aligned, if you are not fully vibrationally connected to the outcome. So like that's where you get into like things feel mechanical or robotic, or things just don't land for the person you're speaking with when you're doing the doing, but the alignment isn't there. Conversely, as soon as the alignment there is there, your strategy can be very imperfect. Like I've done events where we put like a lot of money towards Facebook ads and driving traffic. And I just like, I mean, there's one event I'm thinking of in particular. It's honestly miraculous that we had like 70 people in the room. I mean, it was like such a mess. It was honestly such a mess. Like everything leading up to it, like it was, I mean, it's like embarrassing what a mess it was and how much money I spent. But the thing is, I created so much internal alignment and visualization towards that event that despite what a mess it was, it still converted really, 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 really well. And I've had it the other way too, where I've had like everything pristine, like everything laid out, organized perfectly. And I didn't put enough like intentional energy towards it. And even though it was like pristinely laid out, it didn't convert in the way that we'd hoped. So you really do need all three to have things work well.
Now, there's one word that stands out so like that's so important. You mentioned intention.
Yeah,
Now, what exactly is intention?
I
Like
love
that
that
is
question. So that's a great question. So intention is, there's several, I mean, that's a really good question. It's like the why behind what you're wanting to create. What are you wanting to create and why you're wanting to create that? So like one of my whys is having experienced, quite honestly, a very broken family that didn't come from people misbehaving. Like I know both my parents were doing the best they could with what they had. I know my sister was doing the best she could with what she had, but the tools were missing, the emotional intelligence was missing, the self-soothing, like it's just, there was so much that was missing. And having come from an environment like that, and having experienced the consequences of having come from an environment like that in my life, and not only that, like even just taking it to when I lived in Asia and got my master's there, which and that's a whole other story why I ended up getting my master's, not my PhD. Anyway, I did end up getting it. But when I was there, I'd be out on the boat on the Pearl River estuary, and it was like disgusting. Like, like styrofoam floating on the surface, dead fish, oil spills, trash, like disgusting. And I remember thinking to myself, like the dolphins had skin diseases, like it was so gross. And I remember thinking to myself, like, how does a planet get to this? And it occurred to me that we are there because the people who created that mess don't have the bandwidth or interest to care about other people and the environment and stuff like that. They're just doing the best they can with what they have. They're just making a living. They're trying to feed their family. They're doing the best they can. So how can I help people have more capacity, have more heart, have more compassion, have more ability to have what their needs met so they can look out and up and say, oh, like we need a solution here. Like I can personally be a solution to contribute in this way to making people's lives better, making the environment better. But like in order to even get to that Maslow's hierarchy of needs things, like our needs need to be met. And so often, even people who seem like they have their needs met, like materially, their emotional needs are not met. So they're equally destructive. And so there's all of that. And so like I remember right then and there, like I need to get to the source of this. And like for me, that's a huge why for why I do what I do. So when I'm setting an intention for an event or for my day, like for anything, for being in a conversation like this, the intention is like I intend that this conversation will land in an inspiring and impactful and tangible way for someone to call them forth into their highest level of being for themselves and the people around them. And then that starts to create that ripple in the world. Like, I don't always know how I positively affect people, but I know that I do because my intention around that is very clear. And like, as we operate out of those clear intentions, then the natural actions and like universal magic of how things get pieced together happens because everything is energy. And there's a whole science. I mean, there's so much science behind that, which we don't necessarily need to go into now, but we can. Everything is energy. And when you press your intention into something, it automatically activates the field to start to coordinate things on your behalf that no amount of doing can create for you.
I love that. That's so beautiful because it's so in alignment with the whole theme of being
Yeah.
a blind woman.
Yeah.
I always say, I think of it like a vehicle. When you have one thought of like you want to do something and the vehicle is driving this way, but then you have another something else, whether it's a thought or a feeling or a belief, and it's pushing you the other way. So it's so hard
Yeah.
to move forward when not all the wheels are aligned to move forward. Maybe there's one wheel that's like moving backwards. And
Yes.
so when you give this example, it makes perfect sense as to why sometimes we keep doing things and we don't see the results.
Yeah.
And
Beautiful said.
thank you. And for somebody who's like on this journey, because I know like it can get confusing as to like how can we set the intention and then align everything else around that. What are your top three kind of like tips and tricks to set that to set that stage up?
Yeah. When I think about this is such a good question. When I think about how I do that with like my clients, for example, it's funny because like in our year-long group coaching program, Maya, we don't actually get to like strategies and offers and stuff like that until month 3. And the reason is because in month 1, we're very focused on let's get really powerful and in the habit of doing our daily practice, meaning our emotional cultivation, our yoga practice, and like being in the flow of that. Okay. Because after 30 days of doing that, you're honestly a very different person than just like waking up and throwing yourself into the doing. So the first month is getting clear on like that new way of being and new lifestyle, really. The second month is after you've done that, after you've done your body alignment work for 30 days, like after you've done that, the second month finally gets into great. So if I could wave a magic wand of what I want to experience in life, what would that look like? And what are my fears? And what are my strengths? And what are my weaknesses? And what are some like brands or personalities out there that inspire me, that I admire? And what is it that I am most afraid of? And what is it that, and you get into this like big long list of strategic questions to start to get you thinking about what would, like, if I could vacation, one of the questions is, if I could like vacation anywhere this year, where would it be? Where would I go? Why? Who would I bring? What would I do? And to start to get you dreaming in the different areas of your life. And then once you're clear on like you painted this life picture for yourself after having gotten physically and emotionally and spiritually aligned first, now we can look at now what's the like business I want to create? What's the impact and the legacy I want to create? What are the offers I want to create? Instead of like immediately just creating a new job for yourself.
Oh, wow. Something that stood out to me was you mentioned emotional alignment a lot. And when I think about my own personal journey, that was the missing piece for me, especially, was not facing my own emotions and realizing, I had a lot of self-doubts. And I think many entrepreneurs on this journey, like they want to make a difference and they want to have this life of freedom. And but I realized that we don't exactly know exactly what that looks like, which you touched upon visualization. But can you share a
Mhm.
little bit more about why the emotional aspect is also so important that we have to focus? Um,
Your questions are so good, Nikki. Emotions are important because emotions are the language of the universe. So one of the reasons why vision boards and affirmations and all of that are wonderful, but people often find that they're not necessarily, well, either they're not necessarily as effective as they'd hoped and they get disappointed, or they are effective. And the reason why they're effective is because they feel an emotion behind it. So if someone creates a vision board and they put like their ideal body on it, and they put their ideal clients on it, and they put their ideal partnership experience on it, like there's an emotional feeling when they see each of those things, and that emotional feeling is the language and the communication to the universe, to program the universe and the field and say, that's what I want. Because by just saying the words or just thinking the words, that's actually not enough. There's a Nikki, have you heard of the Hawkins scale?
it sounds familiar, but can you share that?
Yeah. Yeah. So there's a really amazing book called Power versus Force by a guy named Dr. David Hawkins. And he goes into the like methodology in the book and everything, but he's able to measure the vibrational frequency of different emotions. And so like for me, this is such a foundational part of how I live my life and teach my clients. I literally have it on the wall in front of me. So I'm looking at it right now. And I will share with you. So the lowest of the vibrational frequencies is 20, and that corresponds with the emotion of shame. The highest vibrational frequency is 1,000, and that corresponds with enlightenment. And then in between that, we have apathy, which is 50, fear, which is 100, grief, which is 75. We have courage, which is 200, acceptance, which is 350, which is actually a very, very, very powerful. That's where you get into more of like the Buddha consciousness of like embracing and accepting what is versus resisting it. Like the more that you resist something, the more that you'll suffer. The more that you deny what is, the more that you suffer. So that's kind of getting into that. Reason is 400, love is 500, joy is 540, peace is 600, and then we get up into enlightenment, which is between 700 and 1,000. And if you want some context, like in the book, he talks about like spiritual historical figures. So, for example, he did all the methodology and testing with this, but like Moses vibrated at 600, Abraham vibrated at 800, Jesus vibrated at 1,000, Buddha vibrated at 1,000. So pretty interesting. And so like when you're in those lower vibrational frequencies, like even desire is 125. That's technically a lower vibrational frequency, interestingly enough. More powerful than desire is like neutrality, 250. Isn't that interesting? So if you have an intention of like, I'm committed to creating, let's say, 5 new clients this week, the desire is great, but if you have that intention and you're able to be committed to the intention from a place of like committed but not attached, that's like neutrality, and that's powerful. Or for example, willingness, that's 310. So like willingness is like the opposite of resistance. So if you're resisting, like let's talk about taking a compliment. If someone gives you a compliment and you're like, oh, this little thing is from like 5 years ago, or like this little thing, I found it in a dumpster outside, like being dramatic, but right, like that's resistance. That's like you're deflecting a compliment. Whereas if you actually allow an acknowledgement in like, wow, thank you so much, like thank you, just simply thank you, or thank you, I received that, or whatever, completely different vibration, and then the universe responds to that differently. And so like when anyone, all of us can relate with the experience of being emotionally triggered. So if an emotional trigger comes up, like I was literally triggered like 2 weeks ago, so it's like I can think about this very vividly. So something happened, I felt rejected, I was triggered. For me, I felt it like here, like throat chakra. And I felt like, and I also felt like someone punched me in the gut. Like I actually felt sick and I actually stopped eating for a couple days just because it was like, it hit me so much because I'm really sensitive. Right. And so it's like, whew. And so I felt this. And what was coming up for me emotionally was like uh, grief. Some like grief came up for me because I felt rejected and I felt like this sense of, because, and this gets into like a deeper conversation, but like when you have a trigger like that, it's not about the person who rejected you. It's about a historical thing that happened before. And I traced it back to feeling like inconsistent love in my family. That's like, and so it became the survival thing of like, I need your love. It's like this needy, graspy, like happiness is external to me kind of vibe. And then like that goes away and it's like, oh, I'm not loved anymore. I'm going to die. Like that's like what your ego is saying. Right. And so these are the emotions that, I mean, I'm acknowledging it because I'm very self-aware and I processed it and very quickly actually. And I was able to, okay, process, acknowledge, not to say that it's bad to feel those things. Like you get to acknowledge it, you don't get to skate over it, you get to feel. So I fully felt my experience, however long it took, which was a few days. And then it was like it never happened. Like I moved on, like it never happened. Like fully respected the process for what it was. And I moved on because I know how important it is to get back into my higher vibrational state because I am creating always. Um, and the sooner I can shift from a place of like, oh, I have authentically worked through this and shifted, the better because I am always creating from that emotional vibrational state. So that's like a super long explanation, but hopefully that helps.
It does. And what I get from that is like I typically relate your stories to like things that have happened in my life. So when I hear your story and it's like when you get triggered, I always think back to um like childhood or like a situation where that has happened. And even though these triggers and traumas may not seem so big in the moment, it's not like somebody came and like it's a serious thing like rape or like abuse or anything like that. It can be a subtle thing such as rejection, such as not feeling love, that creates these triggers in future events. And so that's where the fear stems from. And I realized that as you're telling the story, I'm like, I can relate to that. When somebody said to me, like, oh, no, I don't want to hang out today, or I don't want to hop on a call with you, or I have to cancel. And that brings this uneasiness of, well, I feel unloved.
Right.
And instead of sitting in that,
Yeah.
emotion, allowing it to move out of the body, allowing yourself to feel like, okay, I understand that this is happening, but this is a reaction to my past, and
Okay.
this does not define who I am in the moment or in the future. Like just because someone rejected you, it's like, okay, it's okay, like that does not define me as a person. That does not lower my worth. That does not say that I'm any less worthy of love. And then moving on from that. So I love the way that you explained it because it's allowing that feeling to pass through you instead of holding on to it, which creates what you stated earlier, energetic blocks in the body. And
Right.
so when you brought in yoga, it kind of like it makes so much sense allowing those energy blocks to flow. Can you share a little bit more about like why that's so important to like how that even affects us? Because some people may not understand how energy blocks affects us if we just hold on to it for a very, very long time.
So emotions, beliefs, experiences, memories are stored in the body on a cellular level, even on an epigenetic level. That's like kind of another layer of the conversation. But like, even like we even store like our ancestral stuff in our body. So we have stuff that's ours, we have stuff that's not ours. And I've often seen people in the yoga practice, for example, being in like pigeon pose where it's like a deep hip opener and they just start to cry and they don't even know why. Like they just feel lots of emotion. Well, the hips, especially for women, are the biggest. I mean, that's like the biggest area of like muscle and tissue on the body. So lots of memories and beliefs and experiences are stored there because there's a lot of tissue there. And furthermore, that's the chakra that is connected with safety and stability and security. And so, and for women, safety is like our number one value. And so it's unsurprising to me when I see someone become emotional in a hip opener, because they're actually like reliving and experiencing their experience with old memories related to safety, stability, and security. And they're
Mm,
re-experiencing it so that it can be processed and released. And when we process and release those emotions, whether we attach it to an actual memory that we remember or not, we are able to make space for new memories, beliefs, and experiences that are more fully aligned with where we're going.
that is amazing. So when we talk about success, because I think that's also a big misconception and how that relates to everything else. Um, can you share a little bit more about like the the difference between like the desire of success and what it means to be fully emotionally embodied and what you want success to look like for you?
Hmm. Okay. For whatever reason, I feel called to share this quote, and it's from a leader who I really admire named Jesse Elder. And he says, need nothing. This is like his tagline: need nothing, appreciate everything, have it all. And so it's this idea of like, well, gratitude, and this is a Joe Dispenza quote, but gratitude is the attitude of receivership. Because if you're in gratitude, it's like, I'm in this energetic state of already having exactly what I want. That's what gratitude is. And if you're in an energetic state of already having exactly what you want, you're going to attract what? Exactly what you want. Whereas if you're in an energetic state of, I don't have it yet, I want it, I desire it, that's what you're going to attract more of. And so gratitude, appreciation, like starting with that of like, wow, like, oh, look at what's already here, and like pouring the appreciation into that. And then once you've created that, this is like a daily practice type of thing, you know? So once you've cultivated that, you can be in a place of, okay, well, here's my intention. Here's what I'm committed to creating. And I don't need anything from anybody.
Mhm.
I don't need anything from anybody. You know, I like one of the things that my yoga teacher in New York said that freaking blew my mind the first time I heard her say it, because I so didn't get it at first. She said, you have all the tools you need. You have everything you need inside you. And I literally went up to her after class and I was like, is that true? She was like, "Is what true?" And I was like, "That I have everything I need inside me." Like that was so sincere and confused
Oh,
and like wanting to know the truth about that statement. I was, because I'd never heard that before. I thought about that. And she was like, "Yeah, that's completely true." And I believe that and I agree with that now. I understand that now and I tout that now because it really is true. I mean, granted, like I believe in God and I believe God helps me and fills in the gaps and I can't, like, I fully depend on God for those things. But like even like my intention and my prayers, like that's inside me. I can create that. You know, I know God fills in the gaps and does what only he can do, but ultimately, like I'm the one who drives the boat forward as far as like, here's the direction I'd like to go. That's my free will choosing, here's the direction I would like to go. I have the power to do that. I have the power to declare what I want, what those like end goal visions are, to do what I know to do, to, you know, my emotional cultivation, my yoga practice, taking inspired action. Like I have I have full capacity to intuit, to download. Like I have full capacity to create that. And so like I don't need, I'm not in that like needy vibration. I need anything outside of me. That's like a victim vibration, you know? Like I'm fully powerful from the inside out. Um, so I don't know if this answers your question, but that was the answer that came through to share.
it does. Thank you for sharing that. What I received from your message is that like when you are in the state of wanting more or
Yeah.
desiring more, it's there's always that gap of having to feel like I need more, I need more, I need more. And the fulfillment is like it doesn't allow the universe to bring you and fulfill you because that gap will always be there.
Yeah.
I have to reach the next level or I need even more than what I currently have versus
Yeah.
what you shared of being embodied in gratitude and being grateful for what you already have allows you to be in a state of abundance and
Yeah.
feeling abundant and allowing the universe and allowing God to provide you even more because you already radiant,
Yeah.
and grateful for everything that you do have. So that's actually the message that I received from what you.
Yeah, and as you're sharing, it's occurring to me to clarify some things because I don't want this to be misinterpreted. I'm not saying to be complacent, and I'm not saying to not have desires and visions and goals because that could be misinterpreted. Like the same way how sometimes people misinterpret surrender for resignation. Surrender is not resignation. It just means you are um, willing to be open to a different possibility than what you think you're attached to, and that what you're focused on. So like, and this is the, I mean, I'm not saying this is easy. Like, this is the trick. This is the delicate dance. But like doing exactly what you just said, Nikki, exactly what we've been just talking about. And at the same time, like being ambitious and having the goals and having the dreams and having the declarations and like having all of that stuff, but doing it in a way where you're like your beingness and how you show up and like doing it in a way where it's like, I'm good. You know what I mean? But like still being someone who has those big goals and visions. And like that's kind of hard to explain, but I feel like that's really important to articulate still.
I tie it back to your story actually of how you wanted to be a marine biologist. It's like
Yeah,
you wanted that, but and you're aligning yourself to that, and then allowing that to come to you without attachment, and it actually manifested in life. So I kind of see the correlation there, and
it's
it's being ambitious but not having the attachment to does this define me in some way if I don't achieve it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I love how you just said that. That's exactly it. So true.
Thank you for sharing that. And I know we're wrapping up here. You have a special gift for the audience. Can you share that with us?
Yeah, so we started to talk about chakras. So there's 7 different chakras in the body. That's different energy centers, and the different energy centers govern different parts of your life. So, like we already talked about the root chakra. So like solar plexus is your ability to, that's like your confidence center. I call it inner sunshine. Your ability to make and keep money, like boundaries. Heart chakra, giving and receiving. Throat chakra, authentic self-expression, etc. And you can do different yoga practices to influence those different chakras, to open and align them to influence what you're manifesting in your life. Also, when those chakras are blocked, it's going to block your manifesting in some way. So what we've created is a chakra quiz to help you identify which, if any, of your chakras are blocked. So you can identify where the blocks are so you can do something about it and be really empowered around that.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And for the audience who wants to connect with you, can you share your website or social media account with us?
Sure, it's just thedharmacircle.com or the Dharma Circle handle.
Amazing. I'm so excited. Thank you so much, Julie, for being here, sharing your wisdom, sharing your light with us. And for everybody who is watching, um, I am super grateful to have you guys. And we cannot wait to see you on the next episode of The Magnetically Aligned Woman.
Yay!
Yay!